Hey everyone, welcome back to Your Money Your Life podcast. We are on episode, I don't even know the episode today because we are busy been prepping for this episode. As you see, I have a guest with me. So Miss Juju is now here to talk to us about a bunch of different topics as well as what she does for her community. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, like, subscribe, 5-star rate and review. Myself, also Miss Juju, you'll be able to find her on all social media platforms. In the link in description in this episode, you'll find that. Let's get into this, Miss Juju. Thank you for joining us. We actually met during a Freelancers Hub event a few weeks back. Great chat. We realized that we have not overlapping services, but we have kind of adjacent services that help people in different communities. And we thought, why not talk about that here on this podcast? And also, why not talk about other topics as well? But, that's a good introduction. But I'll also let Miss Juju introduce herself. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hi, good morning. Thank you. Really appreciate being on this platform. My name is Hyunju So, but as was just mentioned, I do go by Juju. Juju is a childhood nickname of mine. It is a part of my name, and it's giving reference to part of my name. The reason why I had a nickname in the first place is because Hyunju is incredibly difficult for many people to pronounce, especially way back in the day when I was young.
Yeah.
So to retain some kind of connection to my Korean heritage, but make it a little bit easier and less daunting for folks, landed on the nickname Juju. But that's a moniker that stuck with me, and I use it professionally, so it's perfectly fine to use it. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I am the founder of a company called Mommy Money Goals. I'm a business coaching service, and I target busy moms. Within that mom sector, it's actually narrowed down even further to single moms, which I am and which I have been navigating for a little while as such. And so the coaching services that I have are intertwined with the framing of mommyhood and single mommyhood and those challenges and how that the challenges, but also the celebrations and how that
Uh,
interweaves into all parts of our life, but especially our professional lives. So we have something called Mommy Hours. I'm literally navigating my business life, my professional life around my kids'
mm,
schedules. So I don't
mm,
have a consistent window of time where I'm available. It's really, you got to check in with me to see when does
got
those
it.
mommy hours open for me. And I think this is a not a unique situation to a lot of moms. So um, this is just underscores my belief in meeting my clients where they are,
I
and my
love that.
clients become part of a network, and the network is growing and building. And it's just so important to me to always have a huge well of empathy when I come in and speak to clients, and for them to understand that I know exactly where you are. I know exactly
Yeah,
the challenges you face. And let's do something, let's make something, let's improve something out of this.
that's one. That's really, really great insight. I like that you mentioned the mommy hours, and we're going to talk more about that, like how you delineate schedule, how you are able, especially as you mentioned the niche of single motherhood and people that are navigating that. Like, I know there's daunting and there's also celebration. So I love that we can talk about that. And I want to dive in to more of the solutions that you're providing as a business coach for your clients. And we're going to talk so much about that in the roundtable. And thank you for joining the platform. Actually, like for those folks that are listening, we are recording this early in the morning, both earlier than, we normally do. Like, so we appreciate, Miss Juju coming and stepping in and giving some insight because it's going to be really, really incredible. Folks, you know how we normally do this? We're going to go through our normal stuff. And if I sound chippier today, because we have a guest and I have to be a little on my P's and Q's, but we're going to go through the first thing, the market update. There hasn't been much in the market. I'll share my screen and go over a little bit of what's going on. As you see here, now you see the screen for the YouTube folks. And for those listening, you'll get the description of what we're seeing year to date, 6 months. Let's go over the past 5 days. The past 5 days, the market, we've actually seen on the S&P 500 ETF that we track, we've actually seen that we're actually a little bit above flat, about 0.5% up over those past 5 days. it's been muted. I think the big thing that we talked about in the last episode was tariffs being blocked, and Ms. Juju, we'll talk about like what's your thoughts on that as well. Tariffs were blocked for a second, and then we saw the courts. I think it was a U.S. court that said, "Hey, they can actually enact these tariffs," and then we had steel tariffs come about. Like we have so much stuff in this realm of this theme of tariffs, yet the market's actually been pretty resilient year to date. We're actually positive. Remember, we saw late April, early May that people were really, really disheveled here, but then we had that big recovery, which again, we talked about that recovery would appear, we talked about on the Your Money Your Life podcast show, that recovery would appear. But Ms. Juju, with tariffs, we've talked about that heavily on the show. What are your thoughts on like especially steel tariffs that were actually enacted, or like how could that affect the economy when we're talking about different tariffs being placed on different industries?
Right, right, absolutely. Well, there's so much of what the core business, manufacturing businesses in the country are involved with steel. Steel
Yep.
touches everything from the manufacturers that we think about, like auto manufacturing, but also down to canned foods,
Yep.
and how steel, um, and as a ancillary market is the aluminum business. So all of
Mhm.
these are kind of intertwined. Um, and yes, while protecting the price of steel could maybe help specific industries, very specific niches of the marketplace, the trickle down effect could be a lot more painful,
Yep.
and there could be job losses, and there has been proven to been job losses while protecting steel, and a couple of thousand jobs were saved, which is thankful. But the ancillary businesses face job losses up into the 70, 80,000
Mm.
numbers. So this
Wow.
is something that maybe isn't thought about as much, are what businesses are touched as a result, the more outlying businesses, outliers.
100%. I love that. You mentioned a good point. Like people think about when you hear a tariff on a certain industry or a tariff on a certain product or any import, you only think about that direct linked, but there's other links, there's indirect links, there's ancillary businesses that are affected when one thing in the chain gets disrupted. And that's actually a really, really good point. So when you think about, tariffs, especially on steel being, actually put in place and maybe even risen. I think they went up to 25 or 50%. Those things are going to have impacts not only on, steel companies, but other ancillary businesses that are indirect links or direct links to these steel companies and manufacturers. So that's a huge, huge point. It's interesting that the market seems to be digesting this and being okay with it. They're pricing in these different things. And the big thing they priced in was the actual tariffs. And then once they saw, I think, the Wall Street's calling it some sort of taco trade or the different things, like, because the Wall Street's are saying, hey, investors are saying they've digested the information. They don't believe that things are really going to happen. And they've kind of really just taken that in and said, all right, we're going to rise anyways. We're going to invest anyways. And so the buyers have come back in. Again, economy is slowing, so we'll see if that's priced in. We're going to talk about jobs and different things of that nature because the economy is slowing slightly, but does that price into the market yet? We don't know. But again, for investors, it's been an interesting time because there was volatility, but then we've kind of recovered so far from that, and now where do we go from here is the bigger question. So that's our market update. We're going to switch into current events. This is going to be fun because we actually have another knowledgeable person that can talk about some current events, and we can really discuss this. Let's go to the first because we were talking about job loss. So I want to actually go over companies. They added just 337,000 to payrolls during May. So there's the fewest workers in the last 2 years. It's the flux around tariffs that we were just discussing. There's other economic policies that are stymieing staff decisions. So the private sector didn't rise as much. So I guess the question for us is this the sign that we've been waiting for, that the economy is slowing down? Are we actually seeing some sort of regression in economic activity? Like people talked about it for a while. I've talked about it extensively. I thought it was coming years back. And we did have GDP contract last quarter, if I'm not mistaken. So I guess the question is, are we going to continue to see that slowdown in the economy because of these different political things, different things going on? My thing is, potentially, I do think we will. but to be seen. What are your thoughts on that? Do you
Yeah.
think we're slowing down? This payroll report that came out points that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that that there's a slowdown in the market, in the economy. That number is reflective of companies. But when you think about small businesses too, they have the same fear, if not more. So businesses that have 10 or fewer employees, they're not hiring. There's definitely been a little bit of a layoff too in the uncertainty, as we just mentioned, around tariffs. Tariffs is a
Yep.
huge kind of unknown. So it's hard for small businesses to pivot and navigate quickly. They're projecting 6 months out and they're not sure, will those tariffs stick? Will they not? So a lot of orders have been foregone. And once you miss that order window, then that's it. Your business for the year
Mhm.
is done. So yeah, I definitely think the relatively slow number of hires for this month is completely reflective of that. And so that number, coupled with what's happening in the small business market, I think is definitely signs that there's a slowdown. Yeah.
That's such a good point. No, that's a really good point that you mentioned small businesses because I almost overlooked that in the sense you're so right. Small businesses have less cushion. Small businesses have less leeway. They have less of that security. So as you mentioned, when they miss a window of ordering window or inventory window or everything's because maybe they tried to project, but there's things moving so quickly with different changes to the legislation, different changes to blocked, unblocked, different things that they're trying to maneuver as quickly as possible. And a small business just has less of that maneuverability because they're just not dealing with as much capital as a larger business. And so that puts them at a lot more strain. And it's something that's to be seen because small businesses and medium-sized businesses are a lot of the lifeblood of our economy. Of course, we know the big tech firms employ and hire and drive a lot of our growth and GDP, but small businesses and medium-sized businesses do as well. And so that is such a good point because you forget about how they're being affected in this. And they're also going to be slowing down things because they just are trying to maneuver what's going on. So great point. I think that's incredible. Let's move to something on the lighter side in the sense of 401ks. Americans are setting 401k records. So there was a story report in LinkedIn News that Americans with 401k plans are socking away, meaning saving a higher percentage of their earnings than ever. This is per the Wall Street Journal, per Fidelity through the Wall Street Journal. Americans are saving a record of 14.3% of their income, up from 13.5% in 2020. These changes are driven by companies' automatic enrollment boosting that up. That rate went from 5% instead of the traditional 3% that they usually start at. However, the increase has been tempered by a 3% drop in account balances to 127,000. And this is backward looking because they probably just looked at the first quarter before the recovery. So I guess that's interesting. So you're seeing that companies are saying, hey, the standard default setting instead of you saving 3% is now increased to 5, and people are saving a little bit more than expected, or saving a little bit more than prior based on this report, just because the standard setting was higher for most people, and then also maybe they're if they have a job, they feel comfortable to sock away. I guess it's an interesting report because if you think about it, we just talked about people having less openings and less jobs around, but then you're seeing people potentially save more. How do we like that balance? I guess what are your thoughts on how we that balance works, or just in general, the thought of people saving a little bit more because enrollment default is a bit higher?
I feel like it's reflective of human nature. We are going to spend more if we have more, but
Yep.
if it's kind of taken away from the beginning and put away, then we don't even realize that this is something that we could just get used to very quickly.
Mm,
If somebody asked an employee, um, would you voluntarily put away more money into 401k? Their first reaction might be no. I need to spend it. I need the cushion. I need to
yep.
have the accessibility. But if you just take it away as a kind of function, then you realize that, hey, I that extra percent is not affecting my day to day, and actually is going to help me, in the long run. Um, so I do think I I think it's something that people can and will get used to.
Yep.
It's hard because a lot of my clients, are definitely living paycheck to paycheck.
Hmm.
So it's also about shifting their mindset that money can be put away, money should be put away.
Yeah.
I don't think, and if it's something that you're kind of more forced into because companies are raising the percentage threshold, as long as the employee understands that this is what's happening, that there's transparency around it, then I think it's actually kind of a good way to shift shift mindsets and actually you know not now 10, 20 years, whenever they access those funds, then they'll realize that, hey, that couple of percentage helped me so much more than having
I,
spent it in the immediate future.
you're so right. There's always this like battle between sacrificing now for later, sacrificing later for now, and that's just like that forever battle between with that most people face is like, okay, do I save this for the later 10, 20 years from now, like you said, when we can touch this and we can use it to for income because we're no longer working, or do we cover bills and expenses that are needed at this time, especially I think most people aren't like going out there and being irresponsible. It's literally is a thing of like, okay, these expenses or the bills are piling up. How do I combat that versus like, saving away for my future? And so that forever battle is something that people struggle with. But I do think, as you were saying, saving a little bit, even if it's a little bit, is always helpful. Like over time, that builds. So like if you're talking about a long time, so people are like, oh, I'll wait till later when I have more. It's like, no, if you're doing what you can now, whatever that is, that's fine because that will compound over time. And as your life shifts and different things, you'll be able to save more down the road. So I think that's such an important topic. But we're glad Americans are doing that. And there's IRAs or different things that my clients are utilizing to save because IRAs, brokerage accounts, those are also important. Custodial accounts, those are super important. So I love that insight. So we're getting to it. So we got two good stories. I think the other one, we were both reading this in the pre-production, and I'm curious on it. Doesn't look that interesting. So that story doesn't look that great, folks. Let's turn to see if there's anything in Robinhood Snacks before we go to our last story on Harvard. Um, Robin Hood snacks. Let's see if we got anything, folks. Wall Street thinks the pain trade is for AI stocks to keep soaring. Okay, so let's look at this. Wall Street thinks the pain trade is for AI stocks to keep soaring. So U.S. stocks continue to make their near bear market in April look like a distant memory. We just talked about people were scared, but again, that's a distant memory now, at least for now. The new leaders are the old leaders, all AI all the time. So we're seeing different companies, the old tech companies, are coming back on Wall Street because they're infusing AI into their business model. It seems like Broadcom hit an all-time high after starting shipments of new AI hardware. Okay, Broadcom, an old tech firm. Palantir closed today at a fresh high. Applied Digital, CoreWeave, I think, is a new company that came to the market. So this is pretty much saying that having AI in your name or having AI in your business model is helping stocks to a certain extent, and people are pricing having a higher valuation because they have some sort of play there. That's interesting, and I do think, of course, the fundamentals, the actual cash, the profit, the generation of profit, applied profit, future profit is what's going to drive the better companies. But this is interesting enough to note. Let's go to another story. There is a foreign students face Harvard ban. The president signed an executive action banning new foreign students from entering the U.S. to enroll at. So is this all for any new foreign students to enroll at Harvard University? The move, which would bar foreigners whose primary purpose for entry in the country is to study at the Ivy League institution. This follows a federal court ruling that denied the government's effort to end Harvard's student and exchange visitor program. Approximately 6,800 international students are enrolled at the university. So this is pretty much a ban on any foreign student. Am I reading this correctly? I'm like, actually, I didn't read the headline, but now when I'm reading the details, is this like, this is one unprecedented. What, like, how does this work? What do you think about this? Like, could this actually be something that's actually implemented? And what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's horrendous. I think you are Harvard and all the top universities countries have long relied on injection of foreign students in adding to their academic as well as creative base. So to all of a sudden deny it and become this protectionist society, kind of version. Not saying it hasn't happened in U.S. history. It's happened multiple times, in the course of its history to have these protectionist kind of policies in place. That number is 6,800. It's not a huge number when you think of
No.
all students, but it's the ripple effect. How will the
Hmm.
rest of the world view the top U.S. Universities and colleges as a destination? If you've been to this, if they have no choice, I think this ban is in court right now. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't think it's enacted. I think, but there's even having the discussion around it makes the
Yeah.
U.S. Very vulnerable on a
Mm.
global level. I know, not from personal experience, but from colloquial stories, and in South Korea, the education system is extremely rigorous,
Mm.
and the competition for top universities is so fierce that they have long been overflowing into specifically American and European universities. And so, what do you do now if those doors are shut?
Mm.
It's really, I think, um, it while it will hurt the foreign nation, I think in the end of the day, this is such a black eye on the U.S. and
Mm.
its global position. I think it's going to really hurt them, along with other missteps. I would like to believe that um, ethics and morals and, all of those are the main reason why somebody is at the top of the food chain
Yeah.
globally. But we know it
Yeah.
is more usually about economics and,
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
hard numbers. But this will definitely, but this will cycle into that as well. There's
Mm.
no way that the country won't take a financial hit because now you don't have the foreign students who are spending so much more. International tuition is extremely
It
expensive.
is. It
So
is.
the 6,800 students was paying disproportionately more compared to other students on campus. So you're losing a large financial contribution, you're losing a cultural contribution, and you're just becoming more and more of this bully, kind
Mm.
of um,
Hmm.
figure on a
Hmm.
global stage.
So you said something that's really important, that top talent in other countries fighting for position within their own universities domestically, but then maybe they can't get in. They're still really extremely talented, so they do flow into other areas to bring that talent over. So that is, like you said, that brain drain that you're potentially losing. Are really talented people that come in, they want to work hard, want to create businesses, want to create something for themselves, and to increase our GDP to help, like you said, it's obviously expensive to go internationally to another university, but also these are people that usually a lot of times they'll be very, very productive in society. So you're losing that and you're shutting that out, which is, how does that affect? Like what is the end goal? Is it a spat between a university that didn't do maybe what you said and like what you said, or like are you actually like thinking about, what you were doing, for the US, which is, a place we all love. So that's an interesting thing, and I think you brought up really, really good points. So we have to watch this and watch how this goes through the legal system and what comes from it. Because again, this is going to have some interesting and really, really different ramifications as we watch it. So, two last stories, folks, before we go to our roundtable. I'm just going to even spot them. JP Morgan's going to allow crypto collateral. That's a huge turn of what Jamie Dimon used to say about he didn't like crypto, but now they're going to let people collateralize their loans, or excuse me, let people collateralize their loans with crypto, even though Jamie Dimon has been reserved and have had reservations about cryptocurrency. They're now saying, hey, we'll take your crypto if you can't pay XYZ. So that's an interesting move. And then lastly, ChatGPT hit 3 million business users. That's pretty impressive. But we're going to move to the roundtable, folks. It's a longer episode because we're having a great discussion. I love it. We're going to talk a little bit more about both of us are, again, myself being a financial advisor, financial planner for a lot of families. Miss Juju also being someone that's a business coach for a lot of women and moms in the communities that she's growing. We just wanted to talk a little bit about both of what we do, how we serve, and how we provide solutions to our clients. And we'll let Juju start. I guess typical people that come to you and they like have things that they're working on. What do they normally come with, and what are some of the solutions that you try to provide to them when they do come to you with those problems?
Yeah, yeah, great question. Thank you so much. So the majority of my clients are starting up new businesses. So this is something that I'm working with, just the basic foundation, just everything from the ground up. So we're putting together business structures, business plans if necessary, looking at different sources of funding, and really just helping launch the business. Even taking a step back before that, a lot of times I've helped clients actualize what that business will be. So it's about turning passion into profits, or about just taking that leap of faith. A lot
Mm,
of times we just need somebody else to support us, to agree with
mm,
us, say, hey,
mm,
this is actually a good idea. But now, besides it being something that you enjoy doing, it can become something profitable. So now
yeah.
in, X, you know, in a certain amount of time, and we, try to do some loose projections. A lot of times, you know, just as much as well as I do, how difficult it is for new businesses to become profitable. So
Mhm.
this is not an overnight process. This is something that, we'll work on slowly and steadily. So the new businesses are often concurrent with their current business. So now
Mm,
you're putting extra work on your plate, but you still have your kids, you still have everything else that's actually, higher up on your priority list. So how do you balance all that? So that's something that we
mm,
um, I tailor uh, around each client to see
mm,
what works best, whether, shifting work hours, reducing something here, increasing something there. But yeah, that's the bulk of my clients are in that space. Then
mm.
I have clients who are in business, um, have been in business, and maybe facing a few roadblocks and saying, I'm not as profitable as I was the last few years, or I'm getting so
Yeah.
tired. I need an injection of energy. I need to, a freshness, a refresh in my business. And so we'll take a look at everything. We'll take a look from marketing to supply chain to cost, your end costs, just make sure everything works out, everything's balanced. I have a lot of clients in the beauty and grooming space, so
Interesting.
there's a lot of raw materials that are needed. And
Oh
so
wow.
I've often been able to find cost savings, will reduce the number of materials. A lot of people think more is better, and that's not necessarily true. So let's figure
Nope.
out, where can we find savings? Where can we reduce, um, your workload even? Are you working, too hard on, on a certain aspect of your business, and it's not really conducive
Yeah.
to your end goals? So, all of this is to say, it's all wrapped around framing of financial health. So
Mm,
I never tell my clients, like, stick with me, honey, I'm going to make you a millionaire, kind of thing. I don't have a target goal. We don't have a target monetary goal. And there's I do that on purpose because I want my clients to live better with what they have, and to understand that that number, if they make a million, if they make 10, 5, 10 million, it's not going to help solve their problems if they can't manage the money you have right now.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, somebody who earns half of what you're earning but is living way below their means is going to live, a little bit easier, a
Hmm.
little bit less stressful,
Hmm.
a life. And this is where I feel like the synergy between you and I come into place, because
Yeah.
um, I, have long been searching for a way, like the next step. What do I do with my clients? If, once we create like kind of a basic understanding of financial knowledge,
Yeah.
um, and kind of an appreciation for that. Now they need somebody who actually knows numbers and
Yeah.
investment and can help now forecast, shape this plan for them, take them the
Yep.
next step. And so
Yeah.
that's what, um, I think we immediately aligned with that,
Yeah.
and like you
100%.
said, these are adjunct business, not, they don't really overlap, tiny bit of overlap, but it's more
Yeah.
of just a handoff.
Yeah.
I think your clients would benefit more too if they had a stronger base knowledge, and
100%.
a lot of things that you talk about with them, if they have, a fundamental understanding, they'll agree, they'll say, okay, this is the right path, or
Yeah.
I've already heard of these terms. This is great. This is something that I'm interested in. Um, so that's, where I know that you and I can find, huge
100%.
clientship there. Yeah.
100%. 100%, Juju. You're really hitting the nail on the head. There is, as you mentioned, like, I like the thing that you said about like people, learning how they need to manage things properly even before things explode for them, right? Like, because if you don't, you take those same old habits into the new income threshold and it doesn't bode well a lot of the time. So that is like a huge, huge point. And it is just like the things that you teach. It's the things that we try to go over as well, like is like understand how to manage things, budgeting, pay yourself first. These things that we've probably heard of, but putting into action can be daunting for some people, and it could be like not habitual for some people, and you have to get into that habit. And as you mentioned, you helping people create businesses, manage things, cut costs, do different things that are super vital for a growing business, a starting business, a already thriving business. Those things are integral for people. And then adding that other piece, this is what we try to do for people, is helping them put the money properly into proper accounts, to invest it, to grow it, to have a portfolio, to have the right accounts aligned for all different facets of your life, whether it's, the business account that's growing that can be invested. It's because you have, children, you want a custodial account. Yourself, you want to retire for yourself and for your employees. Those accounts we have, whether it's simple IRAs, different things. So those things are super crucial. And the bit way you can marry them is what we thought of, folks, is like a way we can marry these ideas and make it seamless for people to go from one stage to the next. That's what we're trying to do. And so we want to help people, and that's why we're here. I guess my last question before we kind of, this has been a really good and long podcast, is, we want to start off with with an anecdote. Is there any like recently, obviously it's like anonymous, but like any cool stories of clients or things that you've worked on recently, or anything that you could share, anonymously?
Um, yeah, sure. I have a client, like I said, she's in the beauty space. And she's been kind of chugging along with this business. It's been a definite side hustle for years. And she made the leap of faith last year to leave a full-time job that was comfortable, but was not, but was too distracting from
Yeah.
what she wanted to do, from her
Yeah.
passion. And
Yeah.
so she said, I'm going to take this leap of faith. I'm going to really listen to you and scale this business. What can I do? How can I start? Um, how can I kind of, jump that threshold? So, we took a serious look at our inventory, found so much that had expired, found so much that
Mm.
had, that she just hadn't cycled through. And I said, you have to reduce your spending costs. You haven't been able to go through this. And then by the time you do, it's expired. And took a look at her ingredient list. She was putting 15 items into a bar of soap. And, I said, do you really need that? Let's see if we can consolidate. And I had her go back and do some R&D. And she was like, you know what? It works fine with 5 ingredients. I just took off 10 ingredients and I was still able to capture, what my intentions were with this product. And so there was just multiple ways that we took a look, just did serious housekeeping, revamped the website, and
Wow.
not that she's a millionaire right now, not that she's achieved any of those financial goals she set for herself, but she's well on her way.
Good.
And having done that just gave her a sense of security
That's awesome.
in quite an insecure venture. You know, it's definitely always a leap of faith. I didn't necessarily recommend her to completely leave her full-time job, but that was the choice she made. She does
Yeah.
have familial support, so that did help,
Yes.
make this decision as well. If she was not in that situation, I would tell her vehemently, don't leave, a full-time job for this. But
Yeah.
since she has that support, and since, now it's been about 6 months since she made that choice. Like I said, she isn't, high on the profitability scale, but she's so much happier, and that
Interesting.
happiness and that relief of stress from going into that full-time job is something that's going to propel her and her business. And yeah, so that's just something that happened recently, a little more
I
recently.
love that anecdote. Thank you for giving us that. I didn't even prep like that anecdote. The couple things that made sense is one, you're right. There's like this balance of like if you're doing something a hard venture, and yes, the rule is you want to stay at your job and work on the your passion project, your venture, in the evening, in the weekends, and like still keep that financial stability. But I think for I'll be the one to say that I left. This is like 6 years ago. I left an investment banking job prior to have started my venture, and luckily it did work out in the sense of like the venture grew, it worked, everything that happened needed to happen. But it was a situation where if it didn't, it's a gamble. But you also have to believe in yourself. And I love that you mentioned like the support for your client, those different things that people also believe in and rallying behind this person. And obviously you bringing in the expertise to help your client go from a place where it was like an uncertainty, a side project, to growing a venture, which takes time, right? It's not going to be immediate. It's going to take time, but you have the right experts helping you if you have the right people guiding you, and you also are putting in all your efforts and your passion into it. Things can happen in the right way. So that's a great anecdote. Thank you, Juju. And thank you all for listening. We had a great episode today, talked about a lot. We're doing this. Juju came in and injected energy. So you guys know I sound way more energetic than I normally sound on these. So we'll probably do this more. Please leave comments, like, subscribe. Also follow Juju as well. You'll see the description in the episode description. You'll see all the links. Actually, tell people a little bit where they can find you on social media as well, right? While we have you, can you tell them where they can find
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. So I have a website, mommymoneygoals.com. My Instagram is the same, mommy underscore money underscore goals. I have a LinkedIn profile also under Mommy Money Goals. So if you search for that, you will find me in multiple locations. I am not on Facebook or any of the other social media sites at the moment, but a lot of the news that I have comes through Instagram. And if you subscribe to my website, you'll be kept abreast of all the current offerings. We I'll blast out everything from grants to some of the topics that we talked about, some of the economic landscape and how that could affect you. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's a supportive and loving community. And,
Love that.
I really am intentional about who joins the network, the kind of woman, the kind of partner, the kind of supporter. Our intention is always to be as supportive as possible, as inclusive
Yeah.
as possible. And yeah, that's it. So really, thank you so, so much. I appreciate this. This
Oh,
was great.
appreciate you for joining, folks. And as always, stay tuned. See us next week.